The Passover Plot suggests Jesus attempted to fulfill Old Testament Messianic prophecy in an effort to purposely deceive the first century world into believing he was the Messiah. He also apparently conspired with Lazarus to coordinate his triumphal entry into Jerusalem, and with Joseph of Arimathea to successfully fake his death on the cross through drug intake, after which he had planned to escape from the tomb and convince the naive disciples he had risen from the grave. The plot was foiled when Jesus' heart was pierced and he died shortly after being removed from the cross. However, the silly woman at the tomb and ignorant disciples supposedly still identified an unknown individual as the risen Christ, even though Jesus' real body still laid in the tomb. This series is beset with numerous weaknesses, including the fact there are many Old Testament prophecies which Jesus could not have fulfilled if he was merely a man, including his place, time, and manner of birth, as well as his lineage and many detailed circumstances surrounding his death. No mere human could have purposely fulfilled all Old Testament Messianic prophecies. Jesus' fulfillment of all 61 specific Messianic prophecies can only be explained by the fact he was and is indeed the divine Savior of the world. Also, there is no historical evidence whatsoever Jesus partnered with Lazarus and or Joseph of Arimathea to pull off such a deceptive plot. One would be much wiser and logical to accept the honest reports of Jesus' actual eyewitnesses as recorded within the early written New Testament than to accept the unsubstantiated theory of any modern scholar. Further, the disciples knew Jesus' appearance well since they had just spent 3 years living in close communion with him. They would not have been duped by a look-alike Savior, especially when they had multiple opportunities to see, touch, talk, walk, and eat with him in various settings over a 40-day period. They surely would not have been deceived if Jesus' real body still laid in a nearby Jerusalem tomb. Additionally, the disciples did not understand or even want to believe the gospel, so they could not have conceived and then all willingly suffered and died for what they could have and would have known was a self-concocted lie. Also, even if the disciples were somehow incorrect in their identification of Christ, it is still ridiculous to believe more than 500 other eyewitnesses and the Jewish religious leaders were wrong as well. Further, thousands of Jews would not have been immediately convinced to suffer and die if Jesus' body still laid in a local tomb. Additionally, strong skeptics like Peter, Paul, Thomas, James, and Jude would not have been persuaded to suffer and sacrifice their lives to spread the message of a man whose body they could have and would have confirmed still laid in a Jerusalem tomb. Also, if there is any doubt among the residents of Jerusalem whether Jesus' body remained in the tomb or not, then the Jewish religious leaders and Roman authorities would have made this fact obvious. Had such an action occurred, then the early church, whose central message was based upon Jesus' physical resurrection, would have been crushed before it even left the starting blocks. Finally, reality of the empty tomb has been admitted by Jesus' ancient critics. A few skeptics believe Pilate, after scourging and crucifying Jesus to pacify the Jews, assured his removal from the cross prior to his death. Pilate's supposed motivation for such an action was due to the fact Jesus was telling the Jews to pay taxes to Rome. Pilate allegedly reasoned that killing Jesus would have meant a loss of taxes, which would have angered the Roman government and likely brought discipline upon him. This weak theory may be dismissed since the early written gospel accounts directly contradict this hypothesis. The first century apostolic eyewitnesses certainly knew the truth much better than any modern scholar. These men reported within the trustworthy gospels that, far from preserving Jesus' life, Pilate assured Jesus' death prior to his removal from the cross. Also, Jesus' death is detailed not only in the Gospels, but is affirmed by several ex-biblical sources, which has forced nearly all scholars, skeptical or otherwise, to accept the fact Jesus really died. This truth destroys the government supporter theory. Further, death was not withheld just because an individual supported the Roman government. In fact, we know Paul was still executed by Rome, although he was a privileged Roman citizen who encouraged people to submit to their earthly government. We have no reason to believe Jesus, a Jew, would have been treated any better by the Roman authorities. Additionally, the Jewish religious leaders who desperately desired Jesus' death would have assured his demise at all costs, so he could not have been removed alive from the cross under their careful watch. Also, a scourged, crucified, and half-dead Jesus would have never inspired the despondent, disbelieving, and misunderstanding disciples to voluntarily sacrifice their lives to spread a gospel message which they knew for sure was a lie. Further, strong skeptics like Peter, Thomas, James, Jude, and Paul would have never been convinced to offer their lives for a man in such a pitiful physical state. Additionally, numerous Jews would have never willingly suffered and died for the risen Christ after seeing the half-dead supposed Messiah whom they had rejected just days before. Finally, if Jesus was a mere man who had survived the cross, then he would have imminently suffered a natural death. His eventual death and decay would have assured the first century world he was not the risen conqueror over sin, death, and the grave.